This podcast is based on real events and personal experiences. Some details may be altered to protect privacy. The opinions and deductions shared are mine alone. While based on real events, the names and certain details have been changed to maintain privacy and respect for all involved. In every relationship, there's a pivotal moment when we begin to look for signs of where things are headed. Especially today, when relationships often start with the fleeting spark of a weekend getaway. The challenge lies in finding the right time to set boundaries. Ask too soon, and it's unclear even to ourselves. Ask too late, and we realize we wasted time. As uncomfortable as it may feel, the conversation should happen as early as possible, especially if the person asking already knows what they want. The truth is, we fear rejection, even when it could save us. Relationship can sink when one person thinks they found a vacation spot, while the other is looking for a long-term lease. And let's not even get started about idealization. Our limbic brain loves to make us dream, allowing us to spot the good even in a heap of manure. It's Wednesday, October 30th, 2024, 9 and 6 p.m. in Italy. I've seen the sun again, but the days are getting darker too quickly. This autumn feels strange, long sleeves are on, yet it's not cold outside. Who knows, maybe one day we'll celebrate the holidays on the beach like in Australia. But for now, let's return to 7:30 p.m. on August 19th, 2024, when I decided to have that uncomfortable conversation. I'm your host Jessica, and this is CHARADE. In my room in Lisbon, I was indulging in a few too many spoonfuls of peanut butter while waiting for my roommate to get ready to go out. I felt flattered by Mr. Mirage's messages expressing his desire to spend time together the next day. Yet, Ericeira's behavior had unsettled my inner compass. Going out twice felt carefree and fun, part of a free trial, but a third date felt different. It became something intentional, and I didn't want to continue this charade without addressing the main question. What are we doing here? Look, I'd rather be the party pooper now than pick up the pieces of myself later. I can carve out time for you tomorrow, but I do feel like I need to understand where we stand. I'm finding it hard to keep investing emotionally without knowing if we are on the same page, or if we are just spending time together without a real direction. This kind of message makes you want to activate airplane mode and toss your phone out of the window, hoping it gets hit by a passing tire. To release a bit of cortisol running through me, I distracted myself by washing the dishes from dinner. I watched the detergent scrub away the vanilla yogurt, reassuring myself that I had done the right thing. Even if he decides to end the connection, that says everything about him and nothing about you. Your attention is a privilege for him. Remember who you are. You don't need him. Then came his response. So, about that, I liked you. The only problem is that you're going to leave. And then what would happen? I reread these words several times, but I liked you kept jumping out at me, His question made sense, but it seemed like he was trying to shift the blame onto me, as if to say, "Why do you want to complicate everything now?" I took a deep breath and pressed on. Exactly, that's why I don't think it's a good idea to meet at all. We meet to do what? Acting for a while that we are something, in the end we aren't? I wanted him to confront the fact that I was no longer willing to play my part in the charade we'd created together. And minute passed. Wow, really? As if he never expected a woman to reject him for wanting something more. Seeking a reaction, I simultaneously said, "He died." And he replied, "I was sad." Said, him? What do you mean? I like you. I'd rather not discuss this, but what can we do? You asked me what would happen. Now tell me, what do you think will happen? Note my expression of interest in the present tense? But that didn't diminish the ecstatic rush I felt from maintaining an emotional clarity I had never had before. I had turned the question around. I wasn't proving to him why it would be worth hanging out with me. No, it was now his job to decide whether I was worth the effort, leaving me to draw my own conclusions. I know it will be boring after you left, but I really wanted to enjoy being with you while you're here. I don't even know what to say. I found myself strangely satisfied by that admission, whether it was true or not. From where I stood, his life seemed flat for someone his age, but regardless of that, I was an attractive, confident, intelligent, funny, ambitious, and empathic woman with a wide range of interests and a healthy lifestyle, capable of speaking more than one language, so obviously, why the hell would you want anyone else at that exact point? I'm not saying we can't still see each other, but I have the right to know where we stand, whether I can see you and with what intentions. If I like you, of course I'll try naturally to maintain a connection, even from a distance. But we both know that's not the best idea, right? I can't just meet you blindly and pretend to enjoy the moment with someone who, in the end, won't be part of my life in the long run. That's not fair, even if we knew it from the beginning. That it was the black and white truth distilled into a simple message. Don't make a fool of me because I don't deserve it. And I know, at the beginning of this story, I was the first to say I would leave after a month. This conversation was also a test to see how invested he was. I liked you, but distance really wouldn't work. And that it was the biting response I had expected, yet he gave me clear proof that he already had one foot out of the door. I know that myself, don't worry. But I really enjoyed meeting you, he added, as if he could sweeten the deal. Now it was up to me to decide what to do next. Should I cut off contact for good and move on? Or should I live in the moment, fully aware of the reality? Because whatever direction I took, I needed to find peace with myself first. So, in case I want to see you, now you don't want to see me because of this? But in any case, I respect your choice and I appreciated having this talk. I enjoyed meeting you as well, and I'm sad it can continue. It would have been nice, from living close by, of course, I mean. Between us, I wasn't deeply affected. I wanted him to believe that his rejection had hurt me. Sure, I was disappointed. I had hoped for a different response. But I wasn't sad. I knew that from a distance it wouldn't make much sense. But what was wrong with hoping someone wouldn't see distance as such a huge obstacle? No, I want to see you. I was afraid you wouldn't want to see me anymore. If we live nearby, it would be perfect. I took a deep breath and let those words sink in. I focused on the present, the only thing I could control. This was a test. Failed, but a test. There was no need to shut down completely and deprive myself of his attention or the moment we could have shared. Disappointment sat in my stomach like a cloud drifting across a sunny sky. There, but fleeting. Well, I need a moment to adjust to this, not because I had hopes or anything, but because it's different seeing someone knowing you still have time and knowing that the moments you're gonna pass are gonna be the last ones. Again, I felt good about the conversation, no anger, just clarity. This aside, thank you for having this talk. I needed it. Okay, I really like that too, the fact that you want to talk to resolve the matter, he replied. We were supposed to take a trip to the Azores, but I didn't plan this one very well. But when we go to the cruise, we will enjoy it a lot. I'm sorry about your future husband and children who stayed at home. My eyebrows furrowed. Mr. Mirage had never mentioned any plan to take me to the Azores. We had only joked about going on a cruise together. His update stroked my ego, but the mention of a hypothetical future family made me laugh at his naivety. Darling, never in my life will I have kids or a husband, I said. Then, to test his reaction, I added, well, I still have a weekend here. Maybe we don't do something that complicated, but we can do something else if you'd like and if we manage. I was curious if his words were empty promises or if he had actually started fantasizing about a trip like that with me. Look, what will I be then? He asked, adding a smirking emoji. It was clear that the idea of a hypothetical future filled with passion intrigued him. What do you have in mind? It was only this month that things got a little out of control. He still seemed interested, but it felt like he was making excuses for his poor money management. Yet, I didn't feel the need to make any effort since we weren't even together. It was his money, he could do whatever he wanted with it. Plus, I wasn't about to give him suggestions to make his life easier. He lived there. He should know the good spots, not me, a visitor for only 2 months. Come on. For your age, by the time, a toy boy, I said, enjoying the thought of being a mature woman with a younger man just a call away. I refocused on the main topic. I have no clue. Maybe we can look into it tomorrow? Oh, by the way, what do we do tomorrow? Anyway, I'm out with a friend, so I can be that available. Let me know for tomorrow, okay? Enjoy your evening! He responded with a laughing emoji to the toy boy comment. I wasn't sure if he found it hilarious or if he was equally struck by my objectification of him. If it was the latter, well, what was wrong with that? Men had been objectifying women since the beginning of time. I was kind of proud of that line. I would have loved to make it into an election poster. I have nothing in mind, but I want to fill you with kisses, hug you, and pick up that tasty body. Okay, enjoy your night, because tomorrow will be mine alone. And suddenly, a bittersweet taste lingered in my mouth as my roommate and I reached Vasco da Gama, one of my favorite spots in Lisbon. Poor thing having to put up with me that night. Instead of sharing our lives and dreams, I found myself recounting the conversation I just had with him. Something was stirring inside me. Perhaps it was because deep down, a part of me still yearned to make things work, even though I knew there was little I could do. I alternated between thoughts like, maybe if I move here, it could be the turning point, and moments of clarity. If he truly cared, he'd take the initiative. I shouldn't be here talking to you about this. You're not him. And is he even thinking about this situation with me right now? Of course not. The truth was that I had fallen in love with Lisbon long before Mr. Mirage arrived. I thought that if we hung out long enough, I could hit the jackpot, move here for my own interests and goals, and maybe even find someone to share it with. What was wrong with that? It would have been an extra incentive. I wasn't relying on him for a place to live, but rather seeking someone to share this new chapter of my life with. It felt like Lisbon could say, yes, this is your door, what are you waiting for? Eventually, I decided to let go of the urge to dwell on a situation I had no control over, pushing it aside to enjoy my friend's company, the crisp air, and the lights outlining the longest bridge in Europe. Hey there, listener! While you are deep in this story, here is a thought. Ever wondered if your adventures could inspire someone else? I want to hear from you. Share your impressions about this episode, Mr. Mirage, or your own unforgettable experiences. Email me at thecharadepodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram at jessie.charade. Here's the twist. In an upcoming episode, I'll feature your stories, anonymously or not, so your voice can join the journey. Don't miss the chance to be a part of Charade. Let's make it personal. Now, back to our story. The next day, Mr. Mirage and I decided to go to the cinema at Colombo Mall. For those who don't know, Colombo is the largest shopping center in Lisbon. It had been his suggestions, and I agreed because I hadn't come up with a better idea. Plus, I knew they showed films in their original language with Portuguese subtitles, unlike in Italy, where everything is dubbed. So, before the movie, we had dinner at Pizza Hut, both craving the cheesy filled crust pizza. Honestly, that was the only reason I suggested it. I had tried it the previous month and enjoyed it. It was amusing when the waiter spoke to us in Portuguese, and at one point, my cognitive abilities just gave up. I glanced at my companion with a silent plea for help, only to be met with more incomprehensible Portuguese. It was frustrating. I missed part of the conversation, couldn't understand anything, and Mr. Mirage couldn't even act as a translator because his language skills were terrible. To make matter worse, the waiter seemed to treat me as if I were invisible, directing all his attention to him. Oh, long live machismo! Do you have an extra apron? Eventually, we reached the heart of the matter, but it only highlighted how often I felt alone facing these little difficulties. I found myself glancing around aimlessly, as even though we were holding hands and brushing our fingers together, staring into each other's eyes like a happy couple, which we weren't, was far from my favorite thing to do. Suddenly, he broke the silence, drawing my attention back to him with an enigmatic remark. You look around carefully. You're an observer, he said, a hint of a smile on his lips. There it was again. The feeling he stirred in me with those comments. It was as if he saw me as a puzzle waiting to be solved. But he didn't point out my quirks as flaws. I wasn't used to that, okay? And I welcomed the feeling of not being diminished for simply being myself. Laughing to mask my embarrassment at being in the spotlight, I said, I was looking at that guy. I don't know what he's spraying on the pizza. I nodded towards the counter, where a boy was spraying a freshly baked pizza with something that looks suspiciously like hairspray. I think it's something to make the pizza shiny and look more appetizing, he suggested, returning his gaze to me. I nodded, but couldn't resist adding, oh, sure. As if seeing the shiny pizza makes the stomach go, how delicious! He burst into hearty laughter. It was the first time I had seen him laugh that way at one of my jokes. You're funny, he noted. At the cinema, we chose to watch a horror movie. He was a fan of the genre in all its forms, while I prefer the thrill of gameplay. I just hoped it wouldn't be one of those movies about possessed children or the church. Those really weren't my thing. But I was definitely in the mood for a tense movie rather than a romantic comedy. We settled into the initially empty theater as our hands communicated better than our words ever could, and he started snapping photos of the surroundings while I sat down, lost in the lyric of a song that had been stuck in my head for days. At one point, he caught my attention and gestured for me to mimic his feet resting on the seats in front of us. I hesitated a bit, finding it a little rude, but eventually gave in for the photo before sitting back up straight. I couldn't help but smile internally. It was sweet he wanted to take pictures together, while I was secretly proving myself that I didn't care as much. My focus shifted back to the song lyric, the chorus looping endlessly in my mind. I glanced sideways at him, noticing he was still pretty engrossed in his phone. I recognized what's up, but I couldn't figure out who he was chatting with. Hola, señorita, he said, and for a split second, I wondered if he was talking to another girl while sitting next to me. My heart ached for all the women who unknowingly found themselves in situations like this. I quickly pushed the thoughts aside, pretending I didn't care. Did you get what I said? I looked up puzzled. I told my mama I'm out with my girlfriend. If I were in the movie, the world would have gone silent. Even the song that had been playing in my head until the moment stopped its tracks. I almost wanted to ask him to repeat himself or pull out my translator app to make sure I hadn't imagined it. Instead, I sat there quietly, staring at his phone still open on the chat with his mother, my thoughts running wild. Just the day before, he'd said he didn't want a long-distance relationship and seemed ready to disappear. And now, here he was, sitting next to me and mentioning me to his mom. My jaw nearly dropped. What does that mean? Why would he tell his mother of all people? And especially, why tell me? I'm not fluent in Portuguese. Is he trying to signal that he wants something more serious? Thoughts swirled chaotically in my mind, but outwardly, I managed to keep a remarkable poker face. After a moment, I decided to diffuse the tension with a joke. So, are we at that point where you've introduced me to your family yet? He let out a half laugh, eyes still fixed on the screen, but didn't respond. So, I pushed further. Does your mom know you're going out with me? The question hung in the air for a bit, and I watched him, waiting for an answer he seemed reluctant to give. Finally, he replied, yes. She knows. I didn't say anything more. The whole situation felt surreal, but as if that weren't enough, he invited me to take a selfie to send to her. I wanted to pinch myself to make sure it was real, But as the lights dimmed and the movie started, I was left in a haze of disbelief. Luckily, it turned out to be a light horror movie. Next to us, another couple sat, the girl curled up with her boyfriend, jumping at every little sound, even when nothing scary happened. Meanwhile, we huddled close, hands clasped, giggling at Portuguese onomatopoeias I teased and scenes that hardly stirred us. At one point, his hand rested on my thigh, radiating warmth. I stared at the actor on the screen, but my mind wandered, no longer focused on the plot. I couldn't help but wonder how much I wanted his hand to move higher. For a moment, I was tempted to guide it there myself. Would he pull away? I wondered, glancing at him. Almost as if in retaliation, I slid my hand to his knee and lazily traced it up and down. I would have liked to go further. After all, suffering is better when shared, but it didn't seem to react, so I pulled back. I refocused on the movie, but the tension between us felt more intense than anything on the screen. Eventually, he stayed over that night and we had sex, which at least eased some of the frustration he had caused earlier. At 7 in the morning, Mr. Mirage's alarm jolted us awake. He nearly jumped out of the bed to get ready for work, while I groaned about being awake when my shift didn't start for another 4 hours. Rubbing my eyes, he leaned in, showering me with affectionate sounds and kisses to wish me a good morning. I barely gathered enough focus to wish him a good day in Portuguese before rolling onto my side. He moved toward the door and blew me a flying kiss. I giggled at the sweet exchange, our little routine, and turned back to return the gesture. He picked between the door and the jamb, sending me another kiss, which I gladly returned. As soon as the door to my room closed, I waited for the sound of the front door before jumping out of bed to start my day. Mr. Mirage texted me while I waited for the subway. I'm already at work. Have a great day, Lindona. I really enjoyed being with you yesterday. I missed seeing you. It made me happy to receive that kind of message after our time together. It felt good to be appreciated, and it showed that our time had been meaningful to him as well. I didn't want to come off as insistent or anxious with a "hey, we need to talk" message. Instead, I decided to keep it light. Have a great day too, meu dozinho. I'm getting ready for work, but later today, I want to share something with you. In the meantime, take care. Bachi bachi. I felt a bit like a linguistic coach when he replied with a simple bachi bachi. No stress, just ease. Satisfied, I shifted my focus to work, chatting with my bosses and colleagues, but above all, making sure I filled my stomach before facing the day ahead. Maybe I was falling into the Italian stereotype: without a full stomach, nothing gets done. When I reopened our conversation later, I found myself wondering whether it was worth bringing up the topic, if I was ready for any negative feedback, or if it might be better to pretend I had amnesia. But life is too short for hesitation. I figured if he wasn't into the conversation I wanted to have, he could just walk away. Honestly, that would say more about him than about me. So, with my thoughts finally clear, I began to type my opening statement. Alright, now that I'm on lunch break, I can share what I wanted to. I've been reflecting on the time we enjoyed yesterday, and I realized I like how we well connect. But then a thought hit me. I don't know if it can have actual sense, but I'm still going to put it on the table. Maybe, once I'm back in my country, we could see if we miss each other, and if that's the case, then maybe we can act on it by setting a time limit to try and, well, reduce distance rather than having it indefinite. If that's something you feel you could want with me. If instead you feel like leaning more towards what came out of our last conversation on the matter, that's also totally fine. As I read it over, I could almost picture it so clearly. Grabbing my phone, rushing to the nearest subway station and throwing it on the tracks. There, yes, completely out of my reach. Ironic, right? I felt this urgent need to express myself, but once I dared to hit send, I suddenly wanted to disappear to avoid facing the consequences of my words. Mr. Mirage's response came quickly, but I hesitated, my nerves twisting in my stomach. Okay, what's the worst that could happen? He could get bored with me and decide to end things. If he reacts that way, it would suck, sure, but it would also mean he doesn't care about you, right? My inner voice urged. With that clarity, I opened the chat. Okay, you can see how we are going to be with each other when you leave, but I'll be honest, I'm very jealous, so I'm sure I'll stay away from you when you leave because it really affects me. I don't know what you're doing or who you're going to be with. It messes with my psychology. Even though you're here, sometimes I think about things but don't say anything because we already talked and decided we are not in a relationship, so I'm not going to charge you anything. But I really enjoyed our connection, even though you only see me as a toy boy. Two things struck me. First, there was no outright refusal. Second, Mr. Mirage had written more than just a couple of lines. When my eyes landed on the phrase, I'm sure I'll stay away from you when you leave because it really affects me, my stomach jolted. I felt like he was extending a hand to justify his hypothetical departure. Then I noticed the past tense he used when referring to our connection, which made me pause. To make matters worse, he randomly mentioned the toy boy. Was this his way of letting me know he was annoyed by being called that? Or was it a subtle dig at the idea of wanting a relationship with someone I supposedly saw as just a plaything? As relieved as I felt that I hadn't been rejected and that we had an open dialogue, something didn't quite add up. Don't let your guard down, I reminded myself. He's a man. He'll keep taking from you until you let him. It's still very possible he might back away. It's just that seeing how we are when together makes me think it could be a shame to quit it like cowards. I know damn well distance doesn't work, but this thought came to my mind and I thought I'd share it with you since I'm seeing you and I like you. The last sentence felt like genuine flattery, almost like I was giving him puppy eyes, but I quickly added, honestly, I'm going to add just this and then I won't bring up the topic anymore. If you like somebody and feel like it, you find a way. Otherwise, you find excuses. So just be clear and it will be fine. Thank you. In a way, I wanted to put him on the spot, force him to tell the truth, not what he thought I wanted to hear or what seemed convenient at the moment. I also wanted to convey that I wasn't clinging to him out of desperation and that I was still very much grounded in my position. My love, calm down. I'm merging words to express myself. I like you and how we get along, but I really want to see how it goes when you go back to your house, where you have people, and in time you will leave my side. So I really want to see how it goes. I like you and I have feelings for you, but I don't want to rush into anything yet. That's what I think and feel. His response seemed more convincing, but there were still aspects that made my nose wrinkle. For starters, when he mentioned having feelings for me after just a month, how could he claim to have feelings? At most, it could be infatuation or a crush, but no real feelings. Then there was the comment about the people waiting for me at home, implying that I would abandon him for them. His perspective felt a bit victimized. Mr. Mirage came off as insecure. As much as I wanted to, it wasn't my responsibility to reassure him. I had already shown him what kind of woman I was. Strictly speaking, who would invite someone to climb a mountain with them if they weren't truly committed to making it work? I was many things, but naive wasn't one of them. You know, I agree on not rushing into anything. It could be the opposite. I leave and you lose interest. It's not set in stone. Then, to lighten the conversation, I asked, but I'm curious. What's the stuff you say you think at times? Oh, about jealousy. Sometimes when you say you're going out with your friends and you go to parties, these things make me think a lot of things like, oh, she's going to be with someone there. Now imagine how I'm going to be when I'm in another country. That response left me frowning for a moment. He had never shown jealousy when I went out before. What was the point of being jealous of someone you didn't want to establish a lasting connection with? Maybe it was one of those things only men understood? I shrugged and reread the message, feeling a flicker of satisfaction. Not so much because of the jealousy, but because he had realized I wasn't just sitting at home waiting for him. That insecurity suggested he didn't see me as desperate at all. In fact, it could have been his way of seeking reassurance, wanting to know if I was only seeing him. But obviously, I wasn't going to fall for that. I too could wonder how many other girls he called princesa, how many were waiting for me to exit the scene. But I didn't feel the need for assurance. It wasn't my job to comfort a man who hadn't clearly told me, I want to be with you. I get it. I'd probably think the same. But even in a relationship, you need to have your individuality. There are boundaries if you set them, otherwise, it becomes cheating, and that's fooling the other person. I mentioned cheating to see if it would spark a conversation, or if it would inadvertently reveal something about his behavioral patterns. It's about that. I'm imaging these things, so the long distance relationship I think is horrible. You don't even know if the person really cares about you. You just take the time to give your attention. Complicated. Loving me was many things, but ultimately it boiled down to one word: complicated. Well, I couldn't blame him for feeling this way. I wasn't exactly thrilled. If someone is willing to try it out long distance when there are 8 billion people on the planet, I think it means something, I said. I didn't want to, nor could I guarantee him my absolute loyalty. I had been there before and had come away broken. I wasn't about to make the same mistakes again. If you want to try something from a distance, we can try. But I'll be honest with you, when something makes me jealous. I didn't understand his fixation on jealousy. It seems trivial compared to the real challenges of a long distance relationship. Was it just his own insecurity? Still, the fact that he was already expressing a desire for honesty felt like a step in the right direction. He hadn't been coerced into saying it, he had volunteered the words. Then a light bulb went off in my head. You aren't secretly planning to ghost me, right? Because that would be unnecessary. I joked, adding a laughing emoji. I hoped it would convey that if he played a part in the long run, I would eventually find out, making his efforts pointless. No. Why? Would you do that? A sad smile curled on my lips. It was as if he wanted to say, Bingo! How did you guess? No, I asked because I suddenly recalled the reel I saw when we started following each other, where you were at the beach playing old Playboy. Something like, I would have liked to go out with someone, but I disappeared, stopped replying, and I don't care. I laughed, but I was genuinely worried about that personality he had shown in that reel posted in June. It was hard to reconcile that with the man offering me an exclusive long distance commitment. Don't judge me. What do you mean? It was a face. The answer left me speechless. It felt like the whole conversation had been flushed down the drain. No one changes that radically in 2 months. Then why the hell you just say you wanted to try it with me? What the fuck? Because I liked you. It was the right reason, but still, it wasn't enough. Also, that damn verb was always in the past tense. I don't know what to say, I replied. And it was true. I liked you for your company and wanted to see what it would work and enjoying being together with you until you don't want any more. I'll be honest with you, and when I want to tell you something, I'll tell you. Once again, it hit me that I had no control over the final outcome. I could only control myself, and how I reacted. I didn't want to argue, so I made my final request. Okay, can we just agree that if anything shifts, we talk and in case close this like normal people instead of acting like immature ones? Please, it will really help me. That request came from a place of vulnerability, with my heart in my hand. I had already encountered too many immature and cowardly people who trampled on my feelings. Given our conversation and the situation, I was confident there was no need to escalate things. And I hope you're honest with me too, he replied, offering no concrete reassurance, then added, what day will you return? It should be the 1st, maximum 2nd of September. Okay, so I know I can plan to see you again. That struck me. His interest was still alive despite the conversation we just had. Well, I'll try to sleep now. Good night, Lindona. He sent, accompanied by a red heart, as though we had become closer after our exchange. Alright, sweet dreams, be genius, I replied, adding a red heart. But unlike him, I was still awake, reflecting on that conversation. That night, I made a promise to myself. It will be the last time I asked a man to initiate a relationship. The desire had to come from them, not me. I was willing to set boundaries around the connection we shared, but it wasn't my job to push things further, just as it wasn't my responsibility to take on other people's insecurities or prove myself worthy of such a commitment. If someone couldn't recognize my true value, then they were simply the wrong person for me. He could say whatever he wanted with words, and part of me desperately wanted to believe him, but only actions would validate his statements. You know, sometimes love is a lot like chasing a mirage. You think you're getting closer, but the more you try to grasp it, the further it seems to slip away. Maybe I was waiting for something that will never happen, or maybe I was just too stubborn to let go. Either way, I was learning that you can't force someone to see you the way you want them to. Love is either there or it isn't, and no amount of trying will change that. And that's a wrap for today's chapter of Charade. Thank you for spending this time with me, it truly means the world. Next time, we'll dive into the real and the real. How does a simple gesture turn into something much more complicated? Stay tuned, this journey is far from over. Until next time, stay curious and take care. Mwah! I am Jessica and this is Charade.